Before we begin, take a breath, because what you're about to hear may not only challenge your faith, it may rewrite your entire understanding of what it means to fall, to break, and to rise again. But before we uncover this hidden truth, if you're on a quest for deeper knowledge like this, please help this community grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell so you never miss a journey into the unknown. And let me know where in the world you're watching from in the comments. It's incredible to see this circle of seekers expanding across nations, united by the hunger for light. Now let's discover together what's coming next, because it will show you that the fall was never a curse. It was an initiation, the fall. In the beginning there was light, unbroken, whole, and unimaginably pure. And from that light came consciousness, radiant, curious, burning to know. But light that only sees itself cannot evolve. So God allowed the first shadow. You know this story. You've heard it whispered in sacred texts and echoed in your own despair, the story of the fall. Lucifer, the bringer of light, looked upon his reflection and said, "I will ascend, I will be like the Most High." And in that single act of self-awareness, heaven trembled. But what if the fall was not rebellion, but revelation? What if the descent into darkness was the moment the divine chose to understand itself through separation? You too have felt that moment, the instant your soul questioned why pain exists. The first time you looked at the sky and wondered why God was silent. That was your own Lucifer moment, not sin, but awakening. Because every human fall is a mirror of the first celestial one. The same voice that rose from heaven's fire burns quietly inside your mind, whispering, "There must be more." Lucifer's exile wasn't just his. It became a blueprint for you, for every seeker who dared to question comfort, to reach beyond obedience, to touch knowledge even when it burned. Eve tasted that same hunger. In the cool shade of Eden, she heard a serpent not as a deceiver, but as a mirror. "If you eat, your eyes will be opened." And something inside her knew, blindness is a kind of death. You've carried her echo ever since. Every time you broke a rule to find your truth, every time you stepped out of the garden of certainty into the wilderness of self-knowledge, that wasn't disobedience, it was evolution. The fall is the moment the divine splits into human form so it can experience its own depth. It's when heaven becomes heart, when infinity becomes flesh. And yet as soon as the light descends, it forgets. You forgot. You looked around this world of density and time and thought, "I'm separate, I am lost." But nothing was lost, only hidden. The serpent didn't destroy paradise, it opened the door to understanding. Lucifer didn't end heaven, he began transformation. And Eve didn't doom humanity, she awakened it. Because the truth is this: there is no resurrection without descent, no enlightenment without exile. Every spiritual awakening begins with a psychological fall. When your identity crumbles, when you question the very God you used to pray to, when love feels like absence and faith turns to dust, that's the moment the divine eye inside you opens. The ancients called it the dark night of the soul, but it is really the morning of awareness. It's when God allows the veil to fall so you can remember who you truly are. Not an obedient servant, but a conscious creator. You were never meant to stay in Eden. You were meant to outgrow it. Because innocence is beautiful, but awareness is divine. And so the fall had to happen, in heaven, in the garden, and inside you. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every unanswered prayer, they're echoes of that first descent. The pain you feel is not punishment. It is participation in the oldest sacred pattern of all, light entering shadow so it can become wisdom. You are not fallen, you are unfolding. You are the continuation of that cosmic journey, God experiencing God through the illusion of distance. And the moment you begin to see your pain not as proof of abandonment, but as evidence of evolution, that's when the fall transforms into flight. But before you can rise, you must face what waits in the shadows of your own Eden. Because every paradise lost must pass through the wilderness before it's reborn. And that's where we go next, into the fire. The fire and the darkness. When you step beyond Eden, the first thing you meet is not freedom, it is fire. Not the fire that warms, but the fire that purifies. It's the burning bush Moses saw when everything he knew turned to ash. It's the sword of flame that guards the gate you can never return through. And it is the invisible blaze you feel when life begins to strip you of everything false: identity, ego, attachment, illusion. The fire is not your enemy, it's your initiation. Because before you can remember your divine essence, the false layers of who you think you are must burn. And that process, that sacred dismantling, feels like death. You will lose people who were never meant to stay. You will lose plans you thought were your destiny. You will lose the voice that says, "I can control this." And in that losing, you will finally meet what cannot be taken. That is the meaning of crucifixion, not a punishment but a purification. The moment spirit is stripped bare of its illusions and hung between heaven and earth, unable to move except inward. You will know this moment by the silence that follows your screams. When no prayer seems to work, when the divine feels distant, when your heart is raw from begging and no answer comes. This is the desert, the 40 days of soul and shadow, the inner wilderness where your mind cannot find footing, and yet your spirit begins to breathe again. It's terrifying because you are conditioned to seek light as comfort. But in this place, the light doesn't comfort you, it exposes you. Every wound, every lie, every place where your love has been conditional. And then, something breaks. Not outside you, but within. The heart that used to plead now begins to listen. The voice that used to demand now begins to surrender. You realize that faith is not believing you'll be saved. Faith is trusting the purpose of your suffering, even when there is no rescue. This is the fire of transmutation, the same fire that shaped the prophets, the mystics, the healers, the same flame that turned Saul into Paul and death into resurrection. You see, even Christ had to walk through his own silence. The cross was not his defeat, it was his psychology made manifest. The moment divine awareness met the full weight of human pain and said, "It is finished," meaning not ended but fulfilled, the descent complete, the shadow integrated, the human sanctified. And you are walking the same spiral. Every breakdown is a mini crucifixion. Every surrender is a resurrection waiting to happen. But you can't rush the process. The fire has its own intelligence. Sometimes it keeps you in the ashes longer than you think necessary, because there are still traces of your old self clinging to survival. There's still a part of you bargaining with God and saying, "I'll heal if you bring them back." But divine love doesn't negotiate, it transforms. So it waits, patiently, until every illusion burns away and you realize that what you called losing yourself was actually finding God within you. And in that surrender, something shifts. The fire doesn't hurt the same way anymore. It becomes luminous. It starts to reveal shapes inside the smoke, patterns of meaning, threads of destiny, the quiet hum of divine order behind every loss. You begin to see that the wilderness wasn't empty, it was sacred, that the silence wasn't punishment, it was initiation, that the fire wasn't death, it was your true anointing, because you cannot meet your higher self in comfort. You can only meet it in surrender. The prophets knew this. Job knew it when everything he loved was taken, and he still whispered, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Mary knew it when she watched her son carry the cross, not as failure, but as fulfillment. And you will know it when you stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to ask, "What is this fire trying to free?" Because that's what every trial is, freedom disguised as loss. And once you learn to see the flames not as chaos but as creation, you will never fear destruction again. But this understanding only comes after the deepest night, after the last illusion burns and the ashes cool and you're left alone, with nothing but your breath and the echo of your own soul. That's when the true darkness begins. Not the darkness of evil, but of gestation, the womb of God, the holy silence that comes before rebirth. So when everything around you collapses and even hope feels hollow, don't run. Stay there, because you are not dying. You are becoming. The rebirth. The darkness does not end. It transforms. At first you think you've been buried, but in truth, you've been planted. The silence that once suffocated you becomes soft, like soil around a seed. And beneath the weight of everything that ended, something begins to stir. a heartbeat, a flicker, a breath that feels ancient and new at once. It's you, but not the you who fell. It's the one who remembers, the one who understands now that even the serpent was a teacher, that even exile was grace, that even the cross was a bridge. Because every shadow you've walked through has carved a doorway for the light to enter. This is the mystery of rebirth. You don't rise by escaping pain. You rise by embracing it so fully that it dissolves into wisdom. You realize that redemption was never a rescue mission. It was a revelation, that God never left you. He entered you. He became your doubt, your fear, your ache, so that when you finally surrendered, you would discover that every cry you ever uttered was God calling himself home through you. That is the secret of resurrection, not an event but a state of consciousness. The moment the divine in you recognizes itself again, the tomb opens not because the stone was rolled away, but because you no longer need walls. The light bursts through not because the sun rose, but because you did. And as you rise, you understand why the descent was necessary. Lucifer's fall, Eve's awakening, Christ's crucifixion, all parts of the same story. The divine learning to love itself through the human experience. The fall was the inhale, the fire was the pause. And rebirth, this is the exhale of God remembering his own reflection through you. Now you stand between worlds, heaven in your heart, earth beneath your feet, and you realize that paradise was never lost. It was redefined. Eden wasn't a place. It was a state of unawareness. You left innocence to find consciousness. You left perfection to find love. And love, real, raw, divine love, cannot exist without the freedom to fall, because only what is chosen can become eternal. You are that choice. You are God choosing himself through your healing, through your forgiveness, through your courage to stay open after breaking. So when you rise, and you will rise, don't leave the ashes behind. Carry them as holy dust. They are proof of your becoming, the evidence that fire can refine without destroying. The scars on your soul are not ugly. They are sacred inscriptions. Each one tells a story. Here the human met the divine and remembered it was one. This is your resurrection moment. Quiet, powerful, irreversible. You no longer chase light because you are light. You no longer seek God because you carry God. And you no longer fear the fall because you've seen that even in descent you were still held. Now when life tests you again, and it will, you will not ask, why is this happening? You will ask, what is this teaching me? Because that's the difference between the fallen and the awakened. One resists the lesson, the other becomes it. And so you walk forward, not as the same soul who fell, but as the one who understood why it had to. You walk as fire made flesh, as forgiveness made form, as the living continuation of that ancient divine experiment called humanity. You walk knowing that even the angels envy this, the courage it takes to forget heaven and find it again inside your own heart. This is your sacred purpose, to descend, to burn, to rise, to remember. Because when you rise, you don't just redeem yourself, you redeem the entire pattern. You rewrite the meaning of the fall. You transform exile into experience, loss into light, death into divine memory. And that is how God evolves, through you. So now take a breath, look at your scars, whisper to your reflection, I am not broken, I am becoming. Because every time a soul like yours returns from the depths with love still intact, heaven expands, and that is resurrection. If these words spoke to something deep inside you, if they helped you see your own fire as sacred, let me know in the comments below what part of your journey you're in right now. Are you still falling, burning, or rising? And if you want to walk further into this kind of revelation, subscribe and stay with this community, because together we're not escaping the darkness. We're learning to turn it into light.